Welcome to Past Paradise. Today we're diving into the Beverly Hillbillies and uncovering weird facts you didn't know about this legendary sitcom. From the unforgettable theme song that still sparks nostalgia, to surprising behind-the-scenes feuds, continuity goofs, and even the show's hidden ties to a larger rural sitcom universe, the Clampett story is richer than you think. We'll explore how real oil hillbillies inspired the plot, why Donna Douglas fought to protect Ellie Mae's dignity, and how Irene Ryan powered through slapstick with grit. Get ready. This isn't just TV trivia, it's cultural history with a twist. Weird facts you didn't know about a classic TV sitcom. The theme song of the television show, The Beverly Hillbillies, 1962, was intended to be a shortcut in the telling of the story, but it ended up being a #1 hit by accident. Paul Henning, the show's creator, expressed concern that new viewers would tune in around the middle of the season and be perplexed as to why a person from the countryside would suddenly be living in a Beverly Hills house. He made the decision that the opening theme should describe the full idea in order to remedy this problem. The Ballad of Jed Clampett was written by Henning as a whole narrative, depicting Jed's life and unexpected finding of oil and the family's journey to California. In essence, Henning turned the theme song into a mini-episode by writing the lyrics for it. Jerry Scoggins, a country singer, was the one who performed the song. His straightforward and folksy delivery was a perfect match for the Clampett's history, and it made the story relatively simple to understand. As a result of the song's catchiness, its unusual length for a sitcom, and the fact that it was played on a weekly basis, it garnered appeal outside the realm of television audiences. An uncommon and surprising accomplishment for a television sitcom tune, especially one that was associated with a rural comedy. The theme song hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart in the year 1963. The achievement demonstrated that a television theme could serve as both an explanation of and a phenomenon of popular culture, and it impacted the way that subsequent sitcoms utilized theme songs to create their identities and their stories. Shocking facts even diehard fans missed. The show continued to perform well in the ratings, not because viewers stopped watching. The Beverly Hillbillies consistently ranked among the highest-rated television shows in the United States in the middle of the 1960s. It frequently finished in the top 10 of the Nielsen ratings and even occasionally topped the list, which is evidence of its enormous popularity among viewers. The management at CBS began to fear that the network's image was too rural and elderly during the late 1960s shift. This was despite the fact that the network was receiving excellent ratings. There was a growing need among advertisers for younger urban viewers who had a substantial amount of discretionary spending. During the 1960s and 1970s, the leadership of the network took a strategic choice to completely do away with programming that had a rural theme, regardless of how well it performed. The Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, and Petticoat Junction were among the shows that contributed to this. The decision to prematurely discontinue the show after 9 seasons, despite the fact that it was still outperforming many newer shows, was a move that stunned both the cast members and the fans of the show. The decision became one of the most famous examples of a show being canceled, not because it was unsuccessful, but because it was successful in the wrong demographic. This decision also served as a case study in how business strategy may take precedence over popularity. Weird things that happened off-camera. Buddy Ebsen's past near-fatal incident influenced the casting decisions that were made for the show. Buddy Ebsen had been cast in the role of the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz many years before the production of the Beverly Hillbillies. He experienced a terrible reaction to the aluminum dust makeup that was applied to his face, which led to being hospitalized and nearly put an end to his career. As a result of the incident, Ebsen developed a long-term sensitivity to his respiratory system, which made carrying heavy makeup and performing physically demanding parts risky for him. When Ebsen was cast in the role of Jed Clampett by Paul Henning in 1962, the production made a conscious decision to avoid using excessive facial makeup or prosthetics for the character. This process was done to maintain Jed's natural and unassuming appearance. In a manner that was not typical for television at the time, the Department of Costume, Lighting, and Makeup discreetly modified their work to safeguard Ebsen's health. Although fans perceived Jed Clampett as a gruff and outdoorsman figure, very few were aware that the role was shaped by a peculiar and potentially life-threatening off-camera occurrence that occurred decades previously. This experience was one that indirectly influenced how the character appeared on film. Fans that changed a beloved TV show forever. The utilization of a real mansion established a new benchmark for the production of sitcoms. In 1962, the production utilized the Kirkby Mansion in Beverly Hills, which at the time was considered one of the most extravagant residences in the state of California for exterior shots. This was an exceptional occurrence given that most sitcoms relied on generic or studio-built exteriors. The Clampett's rustic behavior was highlighted against real high society opulence, and the filming took place in a real home, which served to provide realism and visual humor to the production. There was a striking contrast between the family's down-to-earth and frequently clumsy actions and the lavish setting, which grabbed the audience and made the fish-out-of-water notion more fascinating. Instead of relying entirely on studio sets, future films were able to contemplate more realistic and visually compelling locations thanks to the use of a real, recognizable place for the sake of storytelling. Through its role as a visual representation of the show's concept, the house contributed to the establishment of the Clampett story in American popular culture and impacted the manner in which sitcoms might incorporate real-life settings into comedic situations. Little-known secrets TV never told you. On the Beverly Hillbillies, one of the most charming and unexpected elements was the presence of real animals, especially those associated with Ellie Mae Clampett. Portrayed by actress Donna Douglas, Ellie Mae was known for her deep affection for creatures of all kinds, and the producers decided early on that her character would be surrounded by genuine animals rather than props or stand-ins. This creative choice not only emphasized her eccentric, outdoorsy personality, but also added a layer of authenticity to the Clampett's rural image. Professional trainers were brought in to handle a wide variety of animals, including snakes, bears, raccoons, and exotic birds. Remarkably, many of these animals performed with greater consistency than some of the guest actors who appeared on the show. Their natural unpredictability often led to delays or improvisation, requiring patience from the cast and crew. Yet these moments frequently produced spontaneous humor that delighted audiences. The cast often joked that the animals stole the show, since viewers laughed just as much at their antics as they did at the scripted dialogue. Whether it was a mischievous chimpanzee or a playful dog, the creatures added a unique energy that became a hallmark of the series. While most fans simply enjoyed the spectacle, only a small number realized how carefully orchestrated the inclusion of real animals was. This behind-the-scenes decision remains one of the most memorable aspects of the show's legacy. Crazy facts from the set of a classic sitcom. Filming with actual guns unexpectedly heightened on-set tension. Rather than using completely false props, the production team employed actual rifles loaded with blanks to give the impression that Jed Clampett's hunting scenes were genuine. This idea was a departure from the norm for a sitcom at the time. It was imperative that the players and crew personnel use extraordinary caution. Misfires or poorly targeted blanks periodically shocked the cast and crew, leading to off-camera situations that were both stressful and occasionally humorous. The actor Buddy Ebsen, who played Jed, was given thorough instructions on how to handle the firearms safely, and rehearsals were extended to reduce the likelihood of accidents occurring. Certain occurrences, such as animals or objects reacting in an unpredictable manner to the blanks, were so hilarious that the directors decided to keep them in takes, contributing to the genuine emotions of the episodes. This approach enhanced the realism of the Clampett's outdoor adventures and demonstrated that early television was prepared to challenge traditional sitcom conventions, a reality that viewers rarely witnessed. Bizarre secrets behind one of America's favorite TV families. Individually, Buddy Ebsen provided guidance to Jed Clampett over his country manners. During the casting process for the role of Jed Clampett, Paul Henning urged Buddy Ebsen to give the hillbilly image a more genuine and authentic appearance. Ebsen drew inspiration from his experiences living in rural areas of Missouri. During the production, Ebsen provided writers and filmmakers with guidance on how Jed would properly speak, gesture, and interact with the high society settings of Beverly Hills. This was done to ensure that the character appeared authentic rather than merely being a caricature. The humor was able to feel more natural as a result of Ebsen's contributions, which were responsible for many of Jed's calm and good-natured replies to outrageous situations. Behind the scenes, members of the crew frequently remarked that Ebsen's modest improvisations lifted scenes, giving Jed Clampett an understated charm that contrasted with the more exaggerated, humorous acts that were going on around him. The assistance that Ebsen provided behind the scenes helped define Jed as a sympathetic and grounded protagonist, which ensured that the dynamics of the family remained consistent for the whole 9-season run of the show. Little-known facts about a legendary 1960s comedy. The program that resulted in the creation of an entire genre of rural comedies, the Beverly Hillbillies, made their debut on CBS and rapidly became a phenomenon in terms of ratings throughout the course of its first season. The combination of slapstick humor, unconventional humor, and relatable characters captivated audiences. The success of the show inspired CBS to produce further comedies with a rural theme, such as Petticoat Junction in 1963 and Green Acres in 1965, which eventually led to the establishment of a network trend that dominated prime time for several years. Paul Henning and other producers began to realize that a simple working-class family in circumstances that were ridiculously wealthy or sophisticated connected with a large number of people, which led to the intentional repetition of this formula across other series. Rural comedies in the form of spin-offs not only contributed to the perpetuation of hillbilly characters in popular culture, but they also investigated the tension that exists between traditional American ideals and the contemporary metropolitan life. The Beverly Hillbillies established itself as a classic and transformed the television landscape of the 1960s. It impacted the decisions that were made about programming, the methods that were employed by networks, and the development of an entire genre of family-friendly countryside sitcoms. Odd facts that still surprise longtime fans. The Clampetts frequently fabricated the wealthy lifestyle scenarios they acted out. During the initial phase of the Clampett family's relocation to the Beverly Hills estate, a significant number of the sequences that depicted their encounters with luxury things were either unscripted or somewhat improvised. Buddy Ebsen, Irene Ryan, and Donna Douglas would unexpectedly play off of props. By way of illustration, Jed would occasionally make use of expensive appliances, and Granny would handle exquisite china in an unprofessional manner, thereby generating funny moments that were not intended to be included in the screenplay. It was necessary for directors and camera operators to swiftly adjust to the improvisation to seize the opportunity to capture spontaneous humor while maintaining continuity. Because of these impromptu behaviors, the innocence of the Clampetts in a world of affluence appeared to be more genuine and unpredictable, which contributed to the show's overall appeal. Many fans who have been watching the show for a long time are astonished to hear that some of the most famous fish-out-of-water gags weren't written, but rather developed naturally as a result of the performer's interaction with the set and props. This approach infuses the humor with a sense of authenticity and novelty. Secrets a major TV network didn't want you to know. It wasn't until the middle of the 1960s that CBS and the producers of the Beverly Hillbillies failed to properly renew the copyrights for the first 55 episodes of the series. The fact that they were able to continue producing the series was made possible because of this thing. These episodes have now entered the public domain, which means that anyone and everyone is able to legally broadcast them, replicate them, and sell them without having to pay any licensing fees. This situation is because the episodes have been made available to the public. The fact that they were able to access the public domain was the reason why they experienced this outcome. This error resulted in decades of low-quality reruns and inexpensive DVDs flooding the market, which led to a significant amount of long-term income being lost. Additionally, this error led to the flooding of the market with inexpensive DVDs. This error resulted in a significant amount of money being lost by both the network and the rights holders over the course of their respective careers. The major legal oversight that networks rarely acknowledged in public was the fact that even a blockbuster hit may be mishandled behind the scenes, which the networks didn't want you to know about. This was significant because it highlighted an important issue. Weird facts that sound made up, but aren't. The idea that impoverished families living in rural America could suddenly become wealthy through oil strikes wasn't simply exaggerated comedy. In fact, it had roots in real history. At the dawn of the 20th century, genuine oil hillbillies emerged in states such as Oklahoma and Texas. These families, often struggling to make ends meet, experienced overnight transformations when oil was discovered on their land. In some cases, fortunes were amassed in a single day, reshaping lives and communities almost instantly. This phenomenon, occurring while the century was still young, provided a striking example of how natural resources could alter social-economic realities in dramatic fashion. It was this historical backdrop that inspired Paul Henning when he created the Beverly Hillbillies. The Clampetts, a fictional rural family who suddenly became millionaires after striking oil, were not merely products of comic imagination. Their story was grounded in actual events from American history, cleverly adapted into a sitcom format. By weaving fact into fiction, Henning gave audiences a humorous yet believable premise. The show's success rested on this blend of comedy and authenticity, reminding viewers that sometimes truth itself can be stranger and funnier than fiction. Jethro's twin sister was played by the same actor. Max Baer Jr. secured his place in television history through his unforgettable portrayal of Jethro Bodine on the Beverly Hillbillies. Jethro, the naive but endearing nephew of the Clampett family, quickly became one of the most iconic characters of the series, embodying both comic innocence and exaggerated ambition. Yet Baer's contribution to the show went beyond Jethro alone. In a surprising twist, he also took on the role of Jethrine Bodine, Jethro's identical twin sister. Jethrine was written as a full member of the Bodine family, adding another layer of eccentricity to the show's rural meets wealthy premise. Although Baer physically portrayed Jethrine, the voice audiences heard was not his own. Instead, Linda K. Henning, daughter of series creator Paul Henning, provided Jethrine's voice. This inventive collaboration allowed the character to feel authentic and distinct, despite being performed by the same actor who played Jethro. Baer's ability to disguise himself visually, combined with Henning's vocal performance, created a convincing illusion that delighted viewers. The dual role showcased Baer's versatility and highlighted the creative ingenuity of the production team. By blending physical comedy with vocal artistry, the Beverly Hillbillies transformed what could have been a gimmick into a memorable character, reinforcing the show's reputation for clever, character-driven humor. The show was hugely popular, but publicly dismissed by critics. While millions of Americans embraced the Beverly Hillbillies as a source of laughter and comfort, critics frequently dismissed it as lowbrow or unsophisticated. This sharp divide between popular enthusiasm and elite disapproval became one of the defining features of the show's cultural journey. For everyday viewers, the Clampetts represented a humorous exaggeration of rural innocence colliding with urban wealth, a premise that resonated across generations. Families tuned in week after week, finding joy in the antics of Jethro, Granny, and Jed, while critics often argued that the humor lacked refinement or intellectual depth. This disconnect was striking. Negative reviews appeared in newspapers and magazines, yet ratings soared, making the series one of the most watched programs of its era. This paradox revealed a broader truth about American entertainment. Mass popularity and critical approval do not always align. In fact, the very qualities that critics scorned, its broad humor, exaggerated stereotypes, and simple storytelling, were the same elements that endeared the show to millions. Ultimately, this tension shaped the show's fate. Though it thrived in the ratings, its reputation among cultural gatekeepers remained mixed, underscoring how entertainment can succeed spectacularly even while being dismissed by those who claim to define taste. Cast relationships were not always friendly off-camera. Despite the wholesome image projected by the Beverly Hillbillies, the reality behind the scenes was not always harmonious. While the series entertained millions with its lighthearted humor and family-friendly charm, personal tensions occasionally surfaced among its cast members. One of the most notable conflicts involved Buddy Ebsen, who played patriarch Jed Clampett, and Nancy Culp, best remembered as the sharp, witty Miss Hathaway. Later in life, their relationship soured, not because of professional disagreements, but due to political differences. Culp pursued a career in public service and eventually ran for Congress in Pennsylvania. What might have remained a private divergence of opinion instead escalated into a very public feud. Ebsen, who held opposing political views, went so far as to record a campaign advertisement against her candidacy. This act shocked many fans who had long admired the warm, comedic chemistry between Jed Clampett and Miss Hathaway on screen. The clash revealed how deeply personal beliefs could fracture even long-standing professional relationships. It also highlighted the difference between the Clampett's ideal world and the actors' more complex lives. For audiences, the revelation was a reminder that television magic often masks human complexities. Buddy Ebsen took the role as a career gamble. When Buddy Ebsen agreed to play Jed Clampett in the Beverly Hillbillies, he did so with measured hesitation. At the time, television executives and actors alike viewed comedies built around rural stereotypes as a gamble. Such shows risked being dismissed as shallow or offensive, and Ebsen worried that the role might not only fail but also trap him in a narrow typecast for the rest of his career. His concerns were not unfounded. Many performers had seen promising careers stall after being tied too closely to a single character. Crew members later recalled that Ebsen approached the part with deliberate care. Rather than leaning into exaggerated humor or mocking rural life, he chose to emphasize Jed's warmth, dignity, and quiet wisdom. This subtle decision gave the character a grounding presence that balanced the more outlandish antics of Jethro, Granny, and Miss Hathaway. By portraying Jed as a man of integrity who simply found himself in unusual circumstances, Ebsen ensured that audiences could laugh at the situations without ridiculing the character himself. Ultimately, his thoughtful performance became the anchor of the series. What began as a risky experiment in rural comedy transformed into one of television's most enduring successes, thanks in part to Ebsen's restraint and humanity. Donna Douglas was nothing like Ellie Mae off-camera. Cast and crew often remarked on how different Donna Douglas was from her on-screen persona. While audiences adored Ellie Mae Clampett as a sweet, wide-eyed country girl with a love for animals, Douglas herself was far more complex. Off-camera, she was articulate, confident, and remarkably business-savvy, qualities that surprised those who expected her to mirror the innocence of her character. Douglas took her career seriously and was deeply involved in decisions that shaped Ellie Mae's portrayal. She resisted attempts to reduce the character to a simple caricature of rural naivete. Whenever scripts leaned toward making Ellie appear unintelligent or foolish, Douglas pushed back firmly. She argued that Ellie should be portrayed as kind, emotionally perceptive, and grounded in her compassion rather than a figure of ridicule. This insistence reflected Douglas's own values and her determination to protect the dignity of the role. Her influence helped ensure that Ellie Mae remained more than just comic relief. Instead, the character became a symbol of warmth and sincerity, balancing the show's humor with genuine heart. Douglas's behind-the-scenes advocacy revealed her professionalism and foresight, proving that she was not only a capable actress, but also a thoughtful steward of her character's legacy. Things that made no sense until now. One of the most enduring comic themes in the Beverly Hillbillies was the Clampetts' confusion with modern technology. In early episodes, audiences delighted in watching the family encounter everyday city inventions that were utterly foreign to their rural experience. Telephones, doorbells, and even swimming pools became sources of hilarity. The Clampetts famously referred to a swimming pool as a cement pond, treating it as a curiosity rather than a luxury. Similarly, the sudden ring of a telephone startled them, underscoring how unfamiliar such devices were to people from isolated, traditional communities. At first glance, these moments seemed like simple slapstick humor designed to generate laughs. However, in retrospect, they carried a deeper resonance. The jokes reflected the genuine cultural and technological gap between rural and urban America during the 1960s. Millions of Americans were living through rapid modernization, and for those from rural backgrounds, the pace of change could feel bewildering. By exaggerating this disconnect, the show offered subtle social commentary on how modernization reshaped everyday life. The Clampetts' struggles with technology were not just comedic gags, they symbolized the broader tension between tradition and progress. This blend of humor and cultural reflection helped make the series both entertaining and unexpectedly insightful. Surprising fact about a TV classic. The Beverly Hillbillies occasionally mention locations and characters that later appeared in other rural sitcoms like Petticoat Junction and Green Acres, including the fictional town of Hooterville. Why it's surprising? At the time, viewers didn't realize these shows were subtly connected, creating one of the earliest examples of a shared television universe, long before modern cinematic universes became popular. One of the most surprising aspects of the Beverly Hillbillies is how it occasionally referenced locations and characters that would later appear in other rural sitcoms, most notably Petticoat Junction and Green Acres. The fictional town of Hooterville became a shared setting across these series, linking them together in ways that audiences of the 1960s didn't immediately recognize. At the time, television viewers were accustomed to shows existing in isolation, with little expectation of crossover or continuity between different programs. Yet Paul Henning, creator of the Beverly Hillbillies and Petticoat Junction, cleverly wove subtle connections into his productions. Mentions of Hooterville or overlapping character appearances hinted at a larger world, even if the shows maintained their own distinct storylines. This approach effectively created one of the earliest examples of a shared television universe, decades before the concept became mainstream in film and television. What makes this so remarkable is that audiences initially saw these references as throwaway jokes or convenient settings. Only in retrospect does it become clear that Henning was experimenting with interconnected storytelling. The rural sitcoms of the 1960s weren't just standalone hits. Together, they formed a pioneering universe that foreshadowed the modern fascination with cinematic and television crossovers. Strange facts hidden in plain sight. In the Season 1 episode, The Great Jethro, audiences were treated to one of Jethro Bodine's many harebrained schemes, this time a magic show. As part of the performance, Mr. Drysdale tosses his hat to Jethro, setting up what should have made a simple trick. Instead, Jethro promptly ruins the hat, mangling it in his clumsy attempt at sleight of hand. What makes the moment even more memorable is the continuity of blunders that followed. After the cut, the supposedly destroyed hat suddenly appears intact, resting neatly in Mr. Drysdale's lap. In the next shot, it reappears on the magician's stand as if untouched. A few moments later, Drysdale's hand once again displays the hat in a ruined state, completing a cycle of visual inconsistency that escaped the editors. Sharp-eyed viewers will find the sequence to be a delightful hidden goof, a reminder that even beloved classics were not immune to the occasional production oversight. Such errors were common in 1960s television, when tight shooting schedules and limited budgets left little room for reshoots. Far from detracting from the show, these quirks now add charm, offering fans a glimpse into the imperfect but endearing craftsmanship behind the Beverly Hillbillies. Thanks for watching Past Paradise, where Hollywood legends come home. If you enjoyed today's look into today's topic, the Beverly Hillbillies, 20 Weird Facts You Didn't Know, then don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Got a star or story you want next? Drop it in the comments. Until then, keep the nostalgia alive, only on Past Paradise.